In March 1924, the Ottoman Empire collapsed. With it, Islam was removed from the global stage as a unified political state. But the people and their faith remained, and that left Western strategists facing a very real geopolitical prospect: the possibility that the global Muslim population might eventually coordinate to rebuild a massive, unified Islamic government. While a defeated army can be rebuilt, a dismantled system of governance leaves a vacuum that is difficult to fill. To secure their long-term interests, Western powers looked past the battlefield and focused on the state's internal logic. Maintaining regional dominance required a permanent two-part solution. They had to physically redraw the geographic map to fracture the population, and then systematically overwrite their legal codes from the inside out. The blueprint for this spatial control was drafted even before the empire officially fell, starting with the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. Looking at this historical map, you can see exactly how British and French diplomats preemptively carved the Middle East into a series of entirely new, artificial nation-states, intentionally ignoring the natural cultural and religious continuities of the people living there. By slicing the territory into isolated jurisdictions, like these arbitrary blue and red zones, colonial mapmakers created a structural barrier. When millions are trapped in smaller, fractured legal boxes, it becomes vastly more difficult to organize at scale and rebuild a unified caliphate. Borders drawn on paper are structurally fragile if the people inside them still adhere to traditional systems of power. Stabilization required a local presence that would outlast the departing colonial administrators. To achieve this, Western powers cultivated a new class of local enforcers, a proxy elite designed to manage the region's operational software from the inside. Middle Eastern historian Albert Harani documented exactly how this worked. He outlined the cultivation of a pro-Western ruling class, a network of local elites chosen and groomed by colonial powers to manage these newly invented nations. This was a deliberate educational pipeline. These elites were funneled into prestigious Western institutions, where they absorbed European administrative values, secular philosophies, and the strict mechanisms of civil law. Once their training was complete, they returned home to assume positions of authority. From those perches, they systematically dismantled traditional Islamic governance, deliberately stripping Sharia law from the daily operations of the state. Here is the specific mechanism they used. European civil and positive law was installed as the absolute foundation of state authority. Meanwhile, traditional Islamic law was intentionally isolated, boxed into the narrow, purely private corner of family law. By swapping out the underlying legal code, the West guaranteed that even after they officially granted these Muslim countries independence, the states themselves would permanently operate on Western institutional logic. Fast forward to the modern era, and you can see what happens when this imported system is challenged. During the 2011 Arab Spring, the masses finally threatened this century-old secular legal order by utilizing the democratic process itself. In Egypt, millions of voters went to the polls and elected an Islamic democratic government led by Mohammed Morsi. This represented a direct structural challenge to the entire Western containment strategy. The reaction was immediate. A military coup, heavily bankrolled with billions of dollars from Western-aligned regional partners, swiftly removed the democratically elected leadership from power. The historical pattern is consistent. Western powers will tolerate and often directly fund secular military dictatorships because a reliable strongman protects the artificial borders and European legal structures designed nearly a century ago. Modern control of these proxy states relies on quieter methods, largely enforced through international financial institutions. Organizations like the IMF offer necessary loans, but they are attached to mandatory structural reforms that keep local economies tethered to Western interests. We see this USAID logo representing the vast soft power networks funded by foreign governments. A major focus of these initiatives is the promotion of moderate Islam, a psychological framework designed to redefine the faith as a personal religion, stripped of its political and economic organization. With this moderate framework in place, any attempt to return Islam to the political sphere or to challenge the imported civil law structure is categorized as extremism by the state media apparatus. What began with the maps of 1916 and the legal codes of the 1920s has evolved into a sophisticated, modern architecture of control. Today, the combination of artificial borders and imported law creates a persistent structural barrier to the return of Islamic governance.